like to welcome you to episode 525 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here's the Unpopular Podcast. I'm going to ask you to agree with me and ask you to hear me out. As we continue with this preseason divisional breakdown, we get to the NFC West. And while doing research for, during this process and doing research for this episode, what I realized is I don't think that there's a division in football this year that has people more divided. I feel like there is a sense of black and white when we talk about this division, almost every single team. And I don't think that there's a more divisive team in this division than the 49ers. And most of that divide obviously comes from Brock Purdy. You can feel how you feel about Brock Purdy. What we do know is he got paid this offseason. And we talk about this a lot, whether it is fair or unfair. Whatever dollar sign is in your bank account either does or does not build expectation. They don't make you a max player if they think you're just going to be just another guy. They don't make you a max player if they think that you can't be that piece to get the team over the hump. They paid Brock Purdy as much as they paid Brock Purdy because they feel he can be the quarterback to get them to the heights that they're looking for. Remember, Brock Purdy was the quarterback when they got to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. He was also the quarterback that lost in the NFC Championship, but obviously almost everyone and their mama on the 49ers got hurt to the point where Christian McCaffrey was playing quarterback in that game. I'm here to say I do not feel the same way about Brock Purdy, but I understand why the 49ers would pay what they pay. One thing that I like to do, everyone knows that I am a basketball fan. Everyone knows that basketball is my favorite sport. So what helps me while I do these episodes, while I talk about a sport that I'm not 100% understanding about, is I like to connect basketball and football. Obviously, I love football, but I love basketball more. And when I look at Brock Purdy, I think about that player, whether it's pickup, whether it's an organized game. We all know that player in basketball that you'll be at the court, you'll be at the gym, pick up basketball, and you look up and he's won 5 or 6 straight games. And you're thinking to yourself, how the hell did he win 5 or 6 straight games? Then you look at the team around him and it's like, oh, that makes sense. He doesn't have to do much. Not saying that Brock Purdy is the worst player in the gym, but Brock Purdy is not one of those players that can get hot and go on a 5-6 game run without a strong supporting cast. Brock Purdy still has Christian McCaffrey. He's still arguably one of the best running backs in the league. You still have George Kittle, who a lot of people are saying because of the fall of, or because how Travis Kelce looked last year, George Kittle can be the best tight end in the league. You still have Juwan Jennings, even though I know he requested a trade. We don't know what's going to go on there. And you still have Brandon Ayuk, even though he's coming off injury, and you probably won't have him until week 6. So there are still pieces on this team. And no, I'm not being Cam Newton. No, I'm not calling him again. What I'm saying is we are going to learn a lot about Brock Purdy this year because the the 49ers is a good team. Don't get me wrong. I know they just traded for Sky Moore. I know they just traded for Brian Robinson. So they're going to be a good team. But I kind of think of it as the Legion of Boom in a little bit. And whoa. I'm not saying that this team was as good as the Legion of Boom. But what I'm saying is, when we thought of the 49ers, they've always been defensive-led. And they still have some defensive thoughts, like they still have Fred Warner. They still have Nick Bosa. But, Trey Greenlaw's gone. And just the heart of that defense, a lot of their defense is gone. Including, on the offensive side of the ball, Deebo Samuels is gone. I'm going off of what we've seen. And what we've seen is when Brock Purdy has all his pieces, when Brock Purdy has all his weapons, the argument is he's a top 10 quarterback. The argument is he's one of those quarterbacks that can get you to a Super Bowl. The argument is he's one of those quarterbacks that you have no problem making a max player. But what happens when a lot of those pieces aren't there? We've seen him struggle. Now, this kind of gets to the point where I explain why people are divided on the 49ers. One, people still think the 49ers can be that team. Like I said, you still have Christian McCaffrey. You still have George Kittle. They feel like they can be one of those top-tier teams in the NFC. People still think that the 49ers, while they did lose a bunch of pieces, a lot of the pieces that they lost are on the older side. So people still think that the 49ers, led by Brock Purdy, can be one of the more formidable teams in the NFL. But then there are some people that say, well, I've seen Brock Purdy when he doesn't have all his pieces. I've seen Brock Purdy when the offense needs to be leaned on a little more than the defense, which it kind of feels like that's what's going to have to be this year. And people are out. Spoiler alert. I'm going to talk about a team. I don't think the 49ers are going to win this division. I think they can. And I do think that they have one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in this division, but I don't think that if everyone is healthy, which obviously is an if in this division and football in general, I don't know if the 49ers are going to win this division. And that is going to bring on a lot of conversation about Brock Purdy, about how good he is, about, is he worth the money that they gave him? I could be wrong, because when I look at this team, they still have some incredible pieces. Again, I talked about Fred Warner. I talked about Nick Bosa. Those are top-tier players at their at their position. And then again, I know I was talking to somebody, and they were talking about quarterback tiers or running back tiers, and whatever they were looking at, I think it might have been Bleacher Report, they had Christian McCaffrey as like a third-tier running back. And it's like, we're talking about Christian McCaffrey, who just a couple years ago won the Offensive Player of the Year. Just a couple years ago was undoubtedly the best running back in the league. I don't think the fall-off is going to be that crazy. But I'm looking at this team, and you know what it is? While, yes, there are some veterans. You have some 15-year veterans. You have some 13-year veterans. Kyle Juszczyk. There is still veterans sprinkled alongside this or sprinkled in this team. There's a lot of unknowns. And that is why I said we're going to see if Brock Purdy is that guy or not. Again, I'm not saying that they're going to be terrible, because I don't think so. You still have Trent Richardson. Not Trent Williams. I'm sorry. That's another thing. Shout out to, I think it's Secret Base. They do web series about, teams that collapsed. They do web series about, players and great moments. Go check their YouTube out. They're really cool. And they were talking, a recent episode that dropped on the YouTube was talking about the Legion of Boom Seattle Seahawks. I know this is the second time in this conversation I brought up the Legion of Boom, but I brought it up for a different reason. Outside of the players that departed, obviously, when we talk about the 49ers, I feel like we continuously say the same names. And what I'm talking about isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like we talk about Trent Williams, who, in my opinion, undoubtedly is a first ballot Hall of Famer the minute he retires his cleats. We talk about George Kittle. I'm not going to say undoubtedly, but if he continues his career, he is going to be in the Hall of Fame. We've been talking about these same Fred Warner, Nick Bosa. We've been talking about these players for a while now. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe it is, because I thought last year it was, seeing as though they didn't even make the playoffs. Now you can say it was due to injury, but my question is, when are we going to stop looking at the 49ers as a Super Bowl caliber team? Maybe we're there. I think when you have Kyle Shanahan as your coach, that helps a lot. But these players are getting older. And I can't remember the last time Trent Williams played majority of the season. Now, he could have played last year, and I'm sure people in my comments are going to tell me he played the whole season last year. Okay, cool. But what I'm saying is this. There's a lot on Brock Purdy's shoulders. Like when you have a wide receiver room, day one, of Robbie Chosen, Russell Gage, Ricky, Paracel? I know I said your name wrong, bro. That's the dude that got shot. I'm glad he's here. Sky Moore, who never really worked out in in Kansas City. We're going to see a lot. We're going to see exactly what the 49ers are made of, what Brock Purdy is made of. Because even with Fred Warner, even with Nick Bosa, I don't know how good this defense is going to be. I think it's going to be a struggle. And if Brock Purdy comes out as, a top 10 quarterback, then all of this is for naught. And we will talk about it, obviously, throughout the season. But, again, it goes back to my analogy. Can Brock Purdy is on a basketball team that's playing a pickup and has 5 or 6 straight wins, and it's just like, oh, that makes sense. Now, you get towards the end of the hoop session and those players are tired, so you're going to need someone like Brock Purdy to pick them up. We're going to see if he can do that or not. Speaking of picking up, I'm going to be vulnerable for a second. I'm going to go over to the LA Rams, and I'm going to be very vulnerable. I talked about this last episode, right? In fact, I'm going to tell you what I'm dealing with right now. I am 31 years old, and I'm not used to being, I know I'm just 1 year in, but I'm not used to being in my 30s. I'm not used to things changing. I'm used to walking on a basketball court, just putting on my shoes and going out to run 5, 6, 7, 8 straight games like it's nothing. No stretching, no nothing. No water with me. That's what I'm used to. I've been playing basketball so long, I very rarely, if ever, stretched. The only time I stretched was coming off of an injury or if my body just didn't feel right that day. Then I would stretch, but I'd still go out and hoop. My body let me know, bruh, you were on the other side of 30. All that putting on your shoes and just going out, you can't do that anymore. And you know how it told me that? I am currently, as you're watching this on YouTube, as you're listening to this on any DSP, I am currently in the most pain I have been in a while on my back. My back is on fire. For the last 2 days, I have had a tough time sleeping. Ask anyone that knows me, I've been walking. It's been a struggle walking, all because I didn't feel like I had to stretch. I got back screened. I pulled my back. I kept playing. That was the issue. I kept playing once I knew I pulled my back, and adrenaline carried me until the game was over, and then I could barely walk, and then the next day it was 10 times worse. Right now, as you're currently listening and watching this, my back is on fire. I can barely sit up straight without pain. Why did I tell you all of that? Because when you hear that 37-year-old, might I add, 37-year-old Matthew Stafford is dealing with a back problem, there is sign for concern. There is reason for concern when you hear that 37-year-old Matthew Stafford is having back problems. Because I am currently 31 years old having a back problem, and I can barely think straight. It took God and every single one of Jesus' disciples to get me to record an episode today. I was about to throw in the towel. So you're talking about a player that is trying to lead a football team with back problems. There is sign for concern. On top of that, we know the history of Matthew Stafford. We know that Matthew Stafford is one of the toughest quarterbacks the league has ever seen, back in his days in Detroit and even here in L.A. Not here, but the team that he's on now in L.A. He plays through all type of injuries. He gets hit a lot. It's just the injuries keep piling up. On top of the fact that he has been in the league for 17 years. When you hear that the quarterback is having back issues, and that back issue has kept him out of preseason games and kept him out of practice, but they're still saying that he's going to be ready for week 1, that should tell you there's something going on here. There's sign for concern. Which brings me to part 2. When healthy is the theme of the LA Rams this year. When healthy. Because when healthy, this is one of the best teams, especially offensively, in football. The reason why I am not 100% sure if the 49ers are going to win the division is because if healthy, I have the Rams winning this division. They have a better quarterback in Matthew Stafford. They have one of the most explosive offenses in all of football when we talk about Devontae Adams, when we talk about Puka Nacua, when we talk about Kyron Williams, when we talk about Blake Corum. They have one of the most Tyler Higbee at the tight end position. They have one of the most explosive team. Oh, and Terrence Ferguson. I forgot that he had him. This is one of the most explosive teams in football when we talk about offensively. And even defensively, Jared's coming back, and, it's been going on. He's been working out with Aaron Donald, and you know how that's kind of killed him. But Towards the second half of the season, the Rams had one of the best defenses in football. So you pair that with one of the best offenses, at least on paper, in football. This should be one of the best teams in football in general and should win the division. But there is a sign for concern because we're not talking about a young pup here. There was a report that came out saying that Lamar Jackson might have a foot injury. And I know Harbaugh was talking about it, saying, he thanks his lucky stars, essentially, that the report was negative. And that is a big deal if Lamar Jackson has a foot injury. But you look at Lamar Jackson's foot injury, seeing as though I believe Lamar Jackson's about 26 years old. You look at Lamar Jackson's foot injury much differently than you look at, and it feels much differently than a Matthew Stafford back injury. Again, the only person that's holding me up right now is Jesus. My back is on fire, and I mean that. I promise you I'm being serious. And I'm not trying to go out there and throw a football. I'm not trying to go out there and evade defenders. No. And one thing that I did know about, and you see this a lot. Now, I don't wish, knock on wood, I don't wish more injury. I don't wish injury anyone, but I don't wish an injury to get worse. But one thing that we have seen as of recently is when a player plays on an injury that they feel is bad, but they know how much they mean to the team, and it gets much worse. I don't want that to happen with Matthew Stafford because obviously for him it's about life. It's about how's the quality of life going to be after football. And what's a perfect, I know I'm kind of going deep with this, but what's a perfect example of that? Y'all ever listen to Drew Brees talk these days? I know I just did the NFC South and I kind of killed the Saints. And the Saints fans are on my head talking about, I don't know what I'm talking about. I appreciate y'all watching and listening, but you ever listen to Drew Brees? And how his quality of life is. Not saying that he's terrible, not saying that he's down in the dumps, but Drew Brees is one of those players that constantly played through injury. A lot of the injury was his shoulder. And now he's saying at his age now, he can't even throw a football. Like Drew Brees, the guy that has the most or some of the most passing yards ever, can't even throw a football right now, and he's like 40-something. That's due to shoulder injuries. The last probably 2 to 3 years of his career, his shoulder was shot. I'm not wishing that on Matthew Stafford, but it's like a back injury ain't nothing to play with, bro. Oh, another thing I wanted to talk about, because I don't remember exactly the origin of when I saw this, but I did see a couple of people and a couple of podcast platforms, a couple of sports media platforms talk about this. Yes. I don't know where this revisionist history is coming from. Let me first, before I actually tell you what I'm talking about, let me first say this. People's values and people criteria is different. We have committees because if one person was the only one making the final say so, then it would be skewed. Because what they value, what they deem is credentials, may be different from somebody else. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with people's opinions. If you feel one person is more deserving than the other because of an attribute that somebody else doesn't really care about, nothing wrong with that. That's just how you view things. I've heard a lot of people over the last maybe 2 to 3 weeks question if Matthew Stafford is a Hall of Famer. And my retort to that is, why is that even a question? Is it because when he was in Detroit, he was racking up a bunch of passing yards and a bunch of passing stats, and he had Megatron on his team, but it wasn't amounting to playoff success or really much success at all? Or is it because when he went to LA and won a Super Bowl, might I add, people are saying it wasn't because of him. It was because Aaron Donald was on the team and Von Miller was on the team and Cooper Kupp had an historic season. What I'm saying is this. Matthew Stafford has been in the league for 17 years. And while no, I don't think that he was ever the best quarterback in the league, I think it's undoubtedly asinine to think that he's not a Hall of Famer. The reason why I put out his age and the reason why I said that he's been in the league for 17 years is they just did a quarterback ranking, and we talked about it ad nauseum here, but they've been talking about it out in the sports ether. We talked about the top four, and the top four was obvious. It was in no particular order. It was Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Burrow. Well, if you actually looked at that list, you look at 5 and 6. Number 5 is 20-something-year-old Jaden Daniels, and number 6 was Matthew Stafford. Again, if I'm not mistaken, 37-year-old Matthew Stafford. I think this entire season for the Rams, is contingent on the back, no pun intended, of Matthew Stafford. Now, I know that is a simple evaluation. See, of course, it's about the quarterback, but no. Future Hall of Fame Matthew Stafford can make this offense one of the best offenses in all of football, or they can struggle. I know Sean McVay is a wizard and a great coach, but if you don't have Matthew Stafford, who is a future Hall of Famer, you don't have much. Even with Puka Nacua, even with Devontae Adams. So we'll see. Again, I wish a speedy recovery. I don't wish injury, and I hope that it's not serious. I hope that it doesn't linger, But as somebody that is literally struggling through a back injury right now, I can only imagine how it is trying to perform at the highest level on a football field. So, we'll see. Speaking of we'll see, it goes back to the underlining theme of this entire episode, and that is division. See what I did there? Boy, I'm good. If I could rap, I'd be... I'm not just talking about division in football as far as the NFC West. I'm talking about how most of the teams in the NFC West has their fan bases and the way that people look at them divided. There's a lot of question marks surrounding this Seattle Seahawks team. I don't know if people understand that or not, but this Seattle Seahawks team, there's a lot of new. There's a lot of we'll see. Like Sam Darnold. I was looking this up. Did you know that Sam Darnold is 28 years old and been in the league for 8 years? And for the longest, Sam Darnold was he was a poster child for good player just wrong. Well, let me back up. A lot of people thought he was the poster child for good player, just bad situation. Until he got to the right situation last year in Minnesota and had the season that he had. But there was a lot of people that was saying that threw away the thought of Sam Darnold being good because there was just so many seasons of mediocre. We knew that talent was there, but it just wasn't matriculating into success on the field until last year. There's a lot of new I'll say it like this. Now Sam Darnold's on the Seahawks. You have Mike McDonald, who obviously was the coach last year, but he comes from the Ravens tree. You have a really good roster. Really good roster. You have Cooper Kupp. And a lot of people after last year, actually, a lot of people aren't down on Cooper Kupp. It's just him and Puka Nacua pretty much play the same exact way, same exact position. You're going to go with the younger guy every time. But you have people like Shaquille Griffin on the team. You have DeMarcus Lawrence on the team. You still have Everest Jones, Kenneth Walker, the exceptional running back. Like, there is a lot of expectation on this team. I forgot Leonard Williams on this team as well. Oh, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Well, that's where he went. You still have Reek Woolen. Like, this is a very good team. And I think one of the reasons why people are sort of divided on this team is because a lot of these players, Devin Witherspoon was here last year. And they saw success last year with Geno Smith. Now, I don't think they made the playoffs, but if I'm not mistaken, you have to come in and be better than Geno Smith. And after what we saw last year from both Geno Smith and from Sam Darnold, that shouldn't be that hard of a task. However, we also saw what Sam Darnold looked like in the biggest moments last year. More so the last, 2 to 3 games of the season, including the playoffs. Yo, that conversation rang bells around the sports world. Just how putrid Sam Darnold looked in that playoff game. Mind you, the Vikings were the top team in the NFC. And, yeah. But I will give it credit. He as in Sam Darnold, played incredible damn near all season. And I think people are divided because they don't know what they're going to get from this team. There's a lot of people that's off on this team just because Sam Darnold is their quarterback. And we essentially saw the ceiling that was Sam Darnold last year. Even though it was a high ceiling, there still was a ceiling, and that ceiling necessarily wasn't a Super Bowl caliber player. Hell, it wasn't even a playoff successful player. That ceiling wasn't as high as it looked at times. But I'll say this. Don't tell anybody I said this, right? In fact, let's keep it between you and me. I am extremely high on this Seahawks team. I'm so high on this Seahawks team that I think they will be in the running to win the division. I think the division, the entire NFC West, is contingent on Matthew Stafford. I think Matthew Stafford, by far, is the best quarterback in this division. I think if he's able to play to his potential, the Rams are going to have the best offense. I think the Rams have one of the best defenses. The Rams are going to be as good as Matthew Stafford makes them. But if Matthew Stafford doesn't play, because quiet as it's kept, as much praise as I feel like I've heaped on Matthew Stafford, there were times and there were games where he looked last year all of the 36 that he was. He looked old as hell. He threw some bad interceptions. He had some multiple pick games. Like some games he looked. I vividly remember how good he looked when they played against the Bills, and then I vividly remember how bad he looked when they played against, I think it was the Vikings. So, but let me get back on track. I think this Seahawks team can be one of the best teams in the NFC, especially the NFC West. A lot of that is contingent on how good Sam Darnold is. And to be honest, I know it's not like a contract year or anything, and I know it's there's no money on the line or anything, but I think that this is a very important season for Sam Darnold, just to show the world that last year wasn't a fluke. Just to show the world that last year I was actually as good as I was. That's the norm for me, because it hasn't been like that his entire career. I'm just keep it a bean. I don't know if people remember, but Sam Darnold was one of the most highly touted quarterbacks coming out of USC. Like he was, when he was in the draft, and they talked about him, you would think that he was on that same level as like a Peyton Manning or just one of those elite quarterbacks. And albeit he had an incredible college career, but Sam Darnold has been far from that majority of his career in the NFL. And I'm not saying that you have competition, really, because we've seen Drew Lock as a starting quarterback. That's not. And then Jalen Milroe, even though Jalen Milroe did show very promising flashes in the preseason, I think right now he's more of a packet, or he's more of an experiment. He's more of a project than anything, but he was pretty good. But yeah, man. Yeah. I think this Seahawks team is going to be very good. I think this Seahawks team is going to be so good that they have I'll say this. I'm going to go on a limb. If the Rams don't win the division, it's going to be the Seahawks. That's how much faith I have in Sam Darnold. That's how much faith I have in this entire team. Obviously, injuries can play a huge part in it, but if the Rams do not win this division, it's going to be the Seahawks. This is just a really good team. Really good team. A lot of it is obviously, again, contingent on how good is Sam Darnold. But I think that he'll be good enough. Again, I don't think he'll be the best quarterback, but he could be good enough to be the second best quarterback in the division. I think what we saw last year, You should be. And again, this you still have Jackson, Smith, and Jigba. Like, this is a squad, bro. This squad is tough. Imagine that, bro. Imagine having on one side Cooper Kupp and on the other side Jackson Smith and Jigba. And then out of your running back or out of your backfield, you have Kenneth Walker III. Like, that is monstrous. Man. We'll see. We'll see. But I'm a lot higher on again, if the Rams do not win the division, I'm going to have this. I have the Seahawks. I just trust this team more than I trust the 49ers right now. Even though I do like Kyle Shanahan. So the last team in the NFC West that we have not talked about was, in my opinion, one of the most difficult teams to really gather, really understand, and that is the Arizona Cardinals. Because when you look at the entire roster, no, it's not. It's not any one. It's probably the worst roster in that division. But it is it is the youngest roster, I believe, in that division. I know it's definitely one of the youngest, but I think it's the youngest roster in the division. It actually might be one of the youngest rosters in all of football. So, one thing that we know about sports, especially football, is youth doesn't really necessarily get you to a Super Bowl. So I don't think there should be anyone thinking that this Arizona Cardinals team is even a playoff team. So when I was doing this, what was kind of puzzling to me and what I had to sit and ponder was, what would be a good season for the Arizona Cardinals? Because while all that is true, one of the youngest, Marvin Harrison Jr., one of the best young wide receivers in the league. You have Trey McBride, one of the best young tight ends in the league. Will Johnson, a top tier draft pick, went to Michigan. Obviously, you have James Conner. He's more of a veteran, but Budda Baker is still on this team. All of it kind of, most of my questions went to Kyler Murray. And this is what I meant by that. What do they deem as successful? Kyler Murray is 28 years old. Kyler Murray's been in the league for 7 years. And my question is, have we seen the best of Kyler Murray? Have we seen Kyler Murray's best? Have we seen the ceiling? Have we seen Kyler Murray hit the ceiling? And if the answer is yes, the question is that good enough to justify considering him a top-tier quarterback in the league? Because I think when we talk about Kyler Murray, he always is in that gray area. Because we know how good he can be, but then we also know how bad he can be. And we also know that even at his best, I don't know if that means that I don't know if his best ultimately means wins for the Arizona Cardinals. And again, this is a very young team outside of some veterans. Like I said, James Conner, Kyler Murray is considered a vet now. Most of this roster is, in fact, let me go back. Yeah. So the oldest person on this roster is 38 years old, I believe I just saw. Aaron Brewer, who's a long snapper, he's 35. Most of this team is between 22 and 28. Yeah, you have like Kobe Brissett, he's 32. But he's the backup quarterback. James Conner, he's 30. This is a extremely young team. Zay Jones, who they just got from Jacksonville, he is 30. I'm about to say 19. He's 30. Dalvin Tomlinson, he's 31, but this isn't. There's it. Calais Campbell. Calais Campbell is he's been in the league for 18 years. He's the oldest player on this roster. And a lot of people think that he probably has maybe 1 or 2 good years left, if that. Hell, they were talking about him retiring after last year. So this is a very young team. So I'm going to expect a lot. You expect a lot of penalties. You expect a lot of learning. But my question is when do we give up on Kyler Murray? Or when do we give up on that thinking that Kyler Murray is the right person for this job? Do we? And I think that I'm asking the audience. So y'all have been spamming my comments for the past 2 weeks, which I completely appreciate. You guys tell me, how do you guys feel about Kyler Murray? Because when I was constructing this, I have absolutely no idea. I have absolutely no idea how to feel about this team. I do know that I think they're going to be the worst team in the division just by default. This is a tough division. This is going to be a very competitive division. This is going to be one of the most competitive divisions. Again, you have a team that has been in the Super Bowl in the last 3 years. You have a team that won the Super Bowl the last 4 years. Then you have the Seahawks that have one of the best rosters, not just in the division, but in the conference. So not by far, but I think by default, the Arizona Cardinals got the short end of the stick. They're the youngest team maybe in football, and their roster currently constructed isn't anywhere close to the 49ers, the Rams, or the Seahawks. Which maybe gives Kyler Murray some understanding and Kyler Murray some grace, but it's like, when have we ever went into a season? Again, Arizona fans, NFC West fans, please let me know. Any fans that leave in the comments. Definitely appreciate it. But when's the last time we went into a season and felt confident about Kyler Murray as your quarterback? Felt confident that while it may not be the best season, we have the right quarterback at the helm. Because to be honest with you, as much as I want to see somebody like Kyler Murray succeed because he fits a mold that a lot of people don't appreciate, and that is the small quarterback. Mind you, there's not many teams that have won a Super Bowl with a short quarterback. I'm not going to say small, a short quarterback. I think the only team I can think of, and the shortest of quarterbacks that have won is Russell Wilson? Let me see something. Drew Brees. How tall is Drew Brees? Drew Brees is... Okay. Jesus Christ. Love you so much. Drew Brees is 6 foot. That's one. There you go. Drew Brees is 6 foot. Let's see Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is 5'11". There you go. And let's see Steve Young. I think those are the three, like, I'm not going to say shortest, but when we talk about short NFL kings, those might be the ones that we're talking about. Steve Young is 6'2". No, he's the same height as Steph Curry. And me, I'm 6'2". Kyler Murray would fit that, but kind of like how I feel about Russell, not Russell. One of the biggest reasons why I want Lamar Jackson to win a Super Bowl so bad is because I feel that there has been a sector of quarterback that has not been represented much in the Super Bowl era, and that is the African-American mobile quarterback. I think people can say Patrick Mahomes is a mobile quarterback. People can say Russell Wilson is a mobile quarterback, but their first instinct is not to run, and their strongest attribute is not running the ball. But when you look at someone like a Michael Vick, when you look at someone like a Cam Newton, when you look at someone like a Lamar Jackson, it's not such a drop-off when we talk about their mobility, running the ball and throwing it. So, and then there's always been that stigma of a mobile quarterback can't win a Super Bowl. That's why I would love to see Lamar Jackson, especially the team that the Baltimore Ravens have. I would love to see them win a Super Bowl. On top of that, I would love to see success from a shorter quarterback. Kyler Murray is shorter than Drew Brees. He's shorter than Russell Wilson. He is 5'10", and that's what it says, but I don't even know if that's an official height. So, you know, he'll represent, he's in that class with someone like Bryce Young. Not saying talent-wise, I'm saying height. But, again, Arizona Cardinal fans, please leave in the comment, how do you feel about Kyler Murray going into this season? And when was the last time you felt that Kyler Murray was a top-tier quarterback? If you ever felt that way, please leave in the comments. Let me know. But that's been the NFC West. Again, it's been tough because a lot of it is contingent on injuries. And a lot of it is contingent on who is the healthiest at the end of the season. So I'm going to go off the thought that everyone is going to be healthy. Hopefully, knock on wood, I hope everyone is healthy at the end of the season. If that's the case, I have the LA Rams at number 1. I have the Seattle Seahawks at number 2. I have the 49ers at number 3. Damn, that means the 49. Well, no, the NFC isn't. Okay. 49ers at number 3, and I have the Arizona Cardinals at number 4. That is my ranking of the NFC West. Please let me know. I'm sure you guys will if you feel differently, and we will talk about it. Speaking of we'll talk about it, football, at least NFL football, is right around the corner. You know what is here? You know what is here? It is college football. Now, there's a lot of things that is difficult to do in the sports world. It's difficult to have a complete game. It's difficult to go for the cycle. It's difficult to have a hole-in-one in golf. I think the most difficult thing to do in sports is to take a college football fan away from the TV on a Saturday afternoon. Almost as close as having a logical conversation with a Dallas Cowboys fan. Almost as hard. I think that is the most difficult thing in sports of all time, is having a logical conversation with a Dallas Cowboys fan. And number 2, getting a college football fanatic off the couch, especially when their team is playing or they have some type of parlay in. Boy, it's over with. But college football is here. As you guys are watching this, it is Saturday, and college football is here. Now, I'm not going to go over the entire top 25, but the top 10 going into this season is Texas at 1, Penn State, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, Notre Dame at 6, Oregon at 7, Alabama, LSU, and Miami rounding out the top 10. That is the AP top 10. Or top 10. I think I don't remember who was asked this question. I don't remember who was asked this question. I don't even remember what the platform was, so I apologize that I'm not able to give you the proper credit. But the question was, what is college football going to look like more, or what is more important with college football? Is it recruiting, returning players and recruiting players through the actual recruiting methods, or transfers and NIL deals? And what he was saying, which I completely agree, is it's going to differ from year to year. Some years, like a Fortune 500 company, some years they're down, some years they're extremely up. Some years your team is going to be filled with mainly NIL transfers. Sometimes going to be filled with mainly upperclassmen. And what we've seen throughout the years, at least recently, is the most successful teams have either been fully transformed by NIL, i.e. Ohio State last year, or just a bunch of players that were eligible to go to the NFL but came back, like Michigan the year before. Because remember, Blake Corum, he came back. J.J. McCarthy, he came back for that season. Donovan, I forgot his last name. He came back. Like, there was a bunch of Mason Grant, like a bunch of people on that Michigan team that could have went to the NFL, came back, and then won the national championship. I'm very interested to see what Archie Manning is going to look like as a full-time starter. I think he has one of the deepest teams in college football, obviously in Texas. Steve Sarkisian is one of the best play callers in all of college. So he has the stuff around him that I understand why Texas is number one, ranked number one going into it. I don't know if that's going to be the case. They have one of the toughest opening games of all time, and that is going into Ohio State after Ohio State just won the national championship. But I'm interested to see, man. I'm also interested to see, I think it's Drew. Penn State damn near brought back their entire offense, which is why Penn State's number 2, and their defense is always great, or good. I want to see if Coach Franklin, if he can finally get over that hump, because he's had tough times and he's had a couple blunders in most of the big games. A lot of people are high on Klubnik in Clemson. A lot of people have Clemson win the national championship just because he's the most experienced quarterback, honestly, that we have, and Clemson retooled, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I was looking at Oregon. I was torturing myself the other day. Some people do things just periodically to torture themselves, like they might watch food videos or something. I don't know, when they're hungry. I tortured myself the other day and watched both times Oregon was in the national championship. I watched them lose to Cam Newton. I watched them lose to Ezekiel Elliott. And I even went back and watched last year Dylan Gabriel, the person that's in a head-to-head fight for the backup position for Cleveland. I watched him just crap the bed against Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. Now, I was very loud. People know, especially people around me. Every ear that could hear, I said that Oregon had an unfair shake last year, being the number one team. I feel like I kind of feel myself going into this rant. We're not doing this, but Oregon is ranked 7th. I think that is very generous for Oregon. A lot of our, and I'm say our because people know I'm an Oregon fan. A lot of players either left because they were seniors or left for the draft. Most of our offense is transfers and freshmen. Now, I will say that defensively, Oregon has a shot to be the best defense in the Big Ten. Like I think our defense is better than Ohio State. Not definitely, but better than Penn State. Offensively, though, I don't know. I think that we do have one of the better transfer running backs. I forgot his name, but he is one of the running backs that we got transfer-wise. Give me a second as I look up his name. Mackay. Damn, I'm bad with names. I'm sorry. Mackay Hughes. He's one of the best transfers in all of football, and he went to Oregon. So we know our running game is going to be good. But all right, who do I have making? So I'm not going to do the top 16, but I'm just going to do the final 4. My final 4 is going to be Texas, Penn State, Clemson, I've been struggling between Ohio State and Georgia. Ohio State, I feel like the Big Ten is going to beat each other up between Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State. That's a lot of Big Ten teams in the top. That would be 2 Big Ten teams in the top 4. 3, well 2. I don't think outside of SMU, I don't think there's really any competition for Clemson in the ACC. So which is why I think Clemson is going to cakewalk until they get to the playoffs. Ohio State, I don't know how I feel about their quarterback. We know that Ohio State probably has the best player in all of college football right now in Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith single-handedly beat Oregon. In the Rose Bowl, I think he had like 6 catches for like 250 yards. Yeah, I think Jeremiah Smith is the best player in college football. But who do you have throwing him the ball? That's the question. That's the question right there. Like, do we? And then they did lose a lot on the defensive side of the ball as well. Texas, Penn State, Clemson. I'm going to go to Ohio State. I'm going to go Ohio State because I think they have the best player in college football. And I think my national championship is going to be Clemson against Penn State. And I have Clemson and Penn State. I have Clemson winning the national championship. There you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. Whoa, the Unpopular Podcast. I appreciate you guys. If you want unpopular shirts, hoodies, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link's in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. I appreciate everyone that continues to support. If you already subscribed, please leave a comment. Please subscribe or please rate. Please like the video. Please share. I'm trying to grow the podcast as much as I can, and I cannot do it without you guys. I'm seeing an increase in engagement, which I appreciate. Just more people telling me how wrong I am. Again, I appreciate it all. Please subscribe. And if you know someone that's not subscribed, send it to them, and hopefully they subscribe. Also, DSPs, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, same thing. I don't think any platform is bigger than the other, and I'm trying to grow the Unpopular Podcast unilaterally. So please follow, please subscribe, please rate it, please comment. It means a lot to me. For my socials, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, please follow. I post reels, stories pretty much every day. That's the quickest way to get to me. Just leave it under the comment of the video, and 9 times out of 10 I'm gonna see it. And if you keep it respectful, I don't mind going back and forth. It just means A, you're listening to me, B, you have a opinion about something, and both of which are very important. And again, you keep it respectful. I don't mind going back and forth. Again, I appreciate you guys, and until next time, much love.